Women's health advocates are looking for support in the Senate to try to block a measure that the House approved last week that would immediately cut all federal funding to Planned Parenthood and other family planning clinics. Congresswoman Jackie Speier became the face of the debate Thursday when she bravely shared her personal story of having had an abortion, telling that to fellow House members. Congresswoman, thanks so much for joining us. What made you want to stand up? What was it about that debate that made you throw out your prepared speech?
Andrea, Congressman Smith was reading from a book and detailing the procedure called a D&E, which I had endured, and it was outrageous what was being said, how it was being described, and I looked across the room and saw all these men, none of whom had ever had that procedure, none of whom knew anything about that procedure, and so I decided I had to speak up. It's one of the most tragic experiences that a woman endures, and it was one that was very painful for me, and I know for every woman that has to go through that. But I felt then that it was important to speak up.
Was this something that you had shared with other people, with friends, with family members? I mean, how much of the burden on you at that moment, frankly, was revealing something that was not widely known?
It wasn't widely known. A handful of people knew that I had had the procedure. I mean, it happened at 17 weeks in a pregnancy where the fetus had dropped out of the uterus and into the vagina. I was in a hospital setting. It was one of those tragic moments. We wanted that baby very much, but in the end, I lost it, and it was then required to have this procedure. So it's not comfortable necessarily to have to describe a very personal and intimate set of circumstances, but under the circumstances I felt compelled to do it because it's time that we stop demonizing women who have to endure this procedure. I'm one of them. If I'm the face of it moving forward, I'm proud to stand with other women across this country who make this decision with great care and with great sadness.
Congresswoman, there's another issue here, which is whether or not the budget debate, which is obviously a critical debate. There aren't very many people in America who don't think that something needs to be done. But whether the budget debate is now taking another turn, because we're talking, first of all, about only 12% of the budget that is being really discussed. And it's becoming used, some would suggest, as a vehicle for other issues, collateral issues, social issues.
You know, and I said that during the debate, that this wasn't going to create one job. This wasn't going to somehow reduce the debt and the deficit that we are attempting to address in this country. This was, pure political propaganda. And I understand from the Republican side that they want to speak to their people, to those who have got them elected. But the budget process is one that should be done responsibly. And wiping out $300 million to Planned Parenthood for services to women who don't have health insurance, who are unemployed, who are low income, services around breast cancer screening, cervical cancer screening, and family planning support is not the way you balance a budget.
What do you say to people like Congressman Smith who say that money is fungible, so that even though the Hyde Amendment has for decades prevented federal money to be spent on abortions per se, that once Planned Parenthood has the money, the federal money for family planning, it can also be used for the abortion services that are illegal under federal law?
One of the things, Andrea, I wish we would have to do is wear a lie detector machine when we walk onto the House floor, because so often the truth is twisted, and this money has to be held separately. It can only be expended for those purposes, and the late-term abortion that Mr. Smith was referring to isn't even done by Planned Parenthood. That has to be done in a hospital setting. It's actually giving birth to a fetus. So again, oftentimes those who speak on the floor don't know what they're talking about.
All right, and I should just clarify, when I said that the abortions are illegal, federally funded abortions are prohibited under the Hyde Amendment. Obviously, there are other conditions where to save the life of the mother and the rest, these late-term abortions are legal in the setting. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for continuing to explain what is becoming a growing issue, again, an issue that many people had thought was resolved. Congresswoman Jackie
40 years
Speier.
ago. Thank you.
Indeed.